All right, I don't know what time it is on your clock, but I know what I'm getting ready for. It is time for the Professional CISO podcast with David Malicoat.
If you would, sir, please introduce yourself. Tell the audience, like, I want your bona fides, right? I want you to play it up a little bit for me. Let's hear it. Let's hear them.
All right. Hi. So I'm the Rob T. Lee. There's like two Rob Lees going around the entire cybersecurity industry, and it's
So you had to put the T in there?
yeah. So I have to do Rob T. Lee. He's like Robert M. Lee. You know, so we're trying to differentiate that there a little bit. But I'm the chief of research at the SANS Institute, former Air Force. I got my career started there, approaching 29 years in doing cybersecurity. There's not a lot of people out there that probably have as many years as I do. It's 22, fresh out of the Air Force Academy. Got pulled into cyber. That's its own 30-minute discussion how that happened. I will save you from that. Probably one of the first security operations centers that went 24/7 worldwide. So we might even have that record. And then I was pulled into the Air Force Office of Special Investigations to national level computer intrusion investigations, basically looking at Russians back in the 1998 as a part of the JTF C&D. Later became G&D, and then it became U.S. Cyber Command. And so it kind of had that overall formation. Left Air Force at that point. I did stuff, this and that for the U.S. government for about 6 years. And basically Title 10, Title 50 work. If you have to Google that, that's good. If
There you go.
If you know, you know.
Yeah. When you hear I did stuff, yeah, it's a keyword, key phrase.
This and that, you know, what is that? And then I went and joined Mandiant as employee, I believe, 21, and was working with Kevin Mandia, who initially was Matt at AFOSI. He was there, and been working for SANS since my first presentation in the year 2000, and developed the instant response course for SANS. That is one of the most popular courses, number 2 course at SANS, and also developed the overall Windows Forensics course for SANS. Other notable things through the years, I coined the term DFIR. So also coined the term CTI, where both of these terms kind of came down the line. And I guess my nickname that Robert M. Lee coined me with is the Godfather of DFIR. And so that's it. That's an ultra short version. Did a lot of this and that throughout the years.
So I'm feeling like I'm sitting with a legend at this point, quite honestly.
No.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for your service as a Marine Corps veteran. Truly appreciate that. Just a little bit on the show. That way we have context. We're here at RSA. We don't get a lot of prep time, obviously.
Right.
But I created this show out of what I felt was a need, right? I'm a sitting CISO. I do the job every day. And when Tim Brown got his Wells notice from the SEC, I went out to just do personal improvement, right? And the challenge I found was nobody's really addressing of where the CISO role is going.
Yeah.
Like, how do we need to evolve and become what is being expected of us?
Yeah.
And so over the last just year plus, 62 episodes out, this will be like 65, 66 around there or something like that. And talking with the leaders, right? Talking with the folks that we know that are doing it right, or people outside of the role asking us or looking at us saying, here's what we expect you to do.
Right.
And so I would love to start off with, what's the state of the CISO right now, and from your perspective?
That's a great question. State of the CISO right now is majority of my friends who are CISO have come down the pike and said never again. So I hate to start off on a negative.
No.
I mean, you asked.
Wait, these are real conversations.
Real conversations.
No BS.
Yeah, real conversations, no BS. That it is such a stressful job that, they're really saying, I will never take a job like this again. I would, prefer not to be a CISO. And I think a lot of that is attributed to, and I almost hate to walk down this path almost immediately, but the toxic workplace environment, whether or not you're truly part of the C-suite, whether you're supposed to be wearing a hoodie and working very technical stuff during instant response, and the next moment you're supposed to put on a suit and be briefing the boards and the rest of the C-level executives, and being able to have a foot in both camps. And are you technical? Are you leader? Are you able to manage the finances and the costs surrounding it? Are you able to calculate the return on investment, what security is able to do for the organization? when bad things happen, and even if you here's like a here's like I'm doing the bingo game of what is frustration for.
Right.
We should actually create a bingo game with each one of these things. Like see if you could get through an entire week without hitting bingo.
Probably not.
Probably not. But one of the things is incident happens, you detect the incident, you're actually feeling pretty good.
Right.
You shut it down. You're almost positive that they have not, stolen any of the crown jewels or the Death Star plans. And you still are pointed to and saying it's your fault, even letting the intrusion happen. I go back to our military background. If we had an incident at a base where there's someone who infiltrated the base, we're able to detect it, we're able to shut it down, we're able to prevent what it is that they're trying to do. They would pin medals on all of us.
Absolutely.
And saying, hey, good job. You did your job very well. Keep doing that. Do it faster next time if you can. We'll try to figure out how they broke in, and then hopefully we'll have some sort of resolution there. But the lack of acknowledgement of people doing their jobs really well under the security operations team and so forth is a big issue as to, no matter what you do, if you succeed, you're at fault. If you are at fault, you're at fault.
Zero-sum game.
It's a zero-sum game. And that's where, part of the toxic security workplace comes in. It's like, if you're always at fault, how do you know if you're doing a great job?
In your example, my brain went to deterrence.
Yeah.
Right? It's not something we typically do in cybersecurity, right? I mean, you have your defenses, you have everything up, but we're not out there outwardly posting signs, particularly other than, you're kind of the common, but we're not out there posting on message boards, don't attack our. So is there something like that we can do around deterrence, or is it just, it's always going to be a nature of a zero-sum game for that matter?
Well, I think deterrence comes down to, and here's the real issue is kind of the categorization of what it is that you're trying to not accomplish. Let's go down fairly radical path. If you have a ransomware attack, there's very little deterrence to be able to prevent and to say, if you attack us, there's going to be some sort of retribution that will occur. The hardest part about that is a lot of the ransomware attacks are coming from countries with near zero extradition.
Right.
So they're, even if we say, hey, we're going to come after you, they're sitting over there in, country, and it's like highly technical individuals that have really other, capability of joining Cisco or, VMware or, any of these other great companies. Nope, they're recruited by cyber criminal organizations to say, hey, be smart, be a nerd for us, and it pays very well, and they're not wrong. Other deterrent factors, if you end up trying to take a look at nation state attacks, from exfiltration of critical data to doing implementations in ICSOT networks or telecommunication, what is the deterrence there? It's through the US government. And to a certain extent, it's really hard for an organization to draw a line in the sand that says, don't attack us. The best way you could accomplish that is by having, a really costly, higher cost to be able to get into your organization, meaning that they're going to have to spend a massive amount of effort to get in. And then the hard part about that is, in order to reach those type of levels, you're going to have to be able to argue to the board and the other C-level executives, what is the return on investment for being able to do all this? The other side to that coin is, which balances this out, is, well, what will cyber insurance pay for? So if we have cyber insurance come in and they're able to say, hey, listen, we'll provide some backup for severity of the event, then we don't have to invest near as much into the defenses, where it's a it's not you're trying to make it easy. You want to make it as difficult as possible, but you also are not trying to create Fort Knox.
Right. One of the things that you had mentioned was having the foot in each of these kind of camps, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the technical camp, the leadership camp from leadership down,
Mm-hmm.
and then now we're talking leadership up, or we're talking board, we're talking C-suite, and then you even mentioned having a seat at the table, which has been one of the major subject matters that we have addressed here in this show. So talk to me about that. Like, where are we at? Because I always want the listeners and the watchers of this to be able to take away from this and be like, what are some of these nuggets they can take away from your vast number of years of experience and exposure, right? Because you have exposure to many more people than most, right? Through the nature of what you do. And so any nuggets that people can take away to say, how do you, technical side, stay in that camp, make sure you're proficient, leadership, and then obviously board, C-suite. How do I get myself in a place where I can have that seat at the table?
Well, I'm also interested in hearing your perspective on this too.
Absolutely.
Because,
I'm more than happy to do that as
this
well.
is like, we need a couple beers here.
Absolutely.
All
Oh,
of a
yeah.
sudden becomes a conversation. Well, I think I'll start at the top. I do think it was a miss when the SEC rules came out, because the initial drafts came out that you had to have a security background individual sitting on the boards. And even though the SEC did not make that a requirement, I think any organization out there that has a board should have someone sitting on the board with a cybersecurity background. That is a miss on organizations that do not take this seriously. I think there are too many risks that are potentially involved in order to be able to answer it, all the way, especially even down to AI. You see a lot of organizations trying to implement AI capabilities without understanding the risks. And, it's this double-edged sword that I'm talking to a lot of executives about now. If you move too fast, that is great. You're taking a look at things from an aspect of, hey, we got to remain competitive. This is great. But you see how many organizations implemented the DeepSeek model within days? Microsoft, Amazon, it's a plethora of them.
Yes.
But then what is the risk in doing so? And there's no pushback on the risk side, on the other side of the sword. So kind of in this zero-sum game there too, which is we need to remain competitive, but we also need to, maintain a proper security culture.
Right.
Also, what we're seeing in the AI space right now, you have OpenAI's ChatGPT 4.1 was just released. Almost zero security guardrails. In fact, when you go back in and saying, I would like you to draft a malicious email or a malicious a malware sample, it allows you to do it now because the security guardrails weren't put in place because they're trying to brush these models out. We tested it at SANS. I had a lot of people go through a lot of these tests and saying, is this possible? And without that person sitting on the board and pushing down a little bit and saying, we can't go full with a lack of security culture. And I think that is one of the tendencies of what is kind of driving it. So I know you mentioned a lot of, foots in both camps, but I honestly think it's from a leadership top-down perspective, and we've seen that both in the military.
Yes.
If you do not have leadership truly believing and backing it up in terms of what the mission is, what the vision is, what is, our motto, and I think that drives overall the security culture all the way down to the lowest level as to how important it is what they're doing.
And so I will go to what you asked, which is what is my take on it. My perspective is, I agree. I think AI is definitely making it, it's exponential now, right? And what we thought was a problem before this funny little thing called AI is now, everything that AI brings to the table in a good way, which is the time, essentially accuracy, cycle time, and able to move and analyze a lot of data quickly. But also, you say all those things and you say it to a security person, you go, holy smokes, we're in trouble, right?
Right.
And so what I have put out there, I have a episode where I did just commentary, just me talking, and because what I was seeing was AI would come up at a conference and CISOs would just roll their eyes and hype cycle and just kind of, oh my gosh, here we go again. And I'm like, guys and gals, we need to stop that. We need to get involved at the ground layer as much as possible around the governance, around how these things are being implemented. Because if you're not doing it, then exactly what you were saying, where the business is going to go take this and move it forward, and you're going to be out of the loop, right? And it may be ugly, right? And it may be uncomfortable, and you don't have a lot of time because you have all the other things that you have to do. But this one's critical because it will come at you, and it'll come at you like that bus, that proverbial bus that we see out here on the street.
Right. And the other thing too, like, tying in the security culture, but not just security. I have a big mantra right now that I think CISOs and other executives at organizations need to start from the top down as well, which is everyone learn AI. And it's like, everyone needs to say there's no experts out there. There is this constant learning that needs to occur in every single part of the business unit to help organizational transformation. But everyone's looking at each other that they've figured it out, and there's no one who's figured this stuff out yet. And so that's a top-down perspective, not only from the security teams, like how are you using AI in your daily workflows, HR, finance, sales, product engineering, how is everyone using this? And so this daily learning, I think is going to help out, not in the security culture, but across the organization and understanding of AI and AI risk especially.
So I want to put a finer point on that, if you would. I want you to repeat it for the audience.
Okay.
The mantra.
Yes.
Please, one more time.
Well, I'll even take it a step further.
Please do.
I have literally a T-shirt that I wear around that states, and this is order for being healthy, in 2025 forward. The T-shirt goes sleep, diet, exercise, because if you don't get enough sleep and diet, it doesn't matter what you do for exercise. It just, there's no gains. Your muscles saying, F you, I can't do it. But the last one is AI. Sleep, diet, exercise, AI. This is going to produce a healthy individual, not only now, but into the future. And again, you do 30 minutes of exercise each day. You do 30 minutes of studying AI each day. And again, it should be carved out in your schedule and taken seriously. You carve out time for sleep, you put your lights out every night at the same time. You eat healthy, you go shop healthy, try not to eat the garbage. All these things combine into what is going to make you a stronger professional and healthy individual from here forward for the next 5 years.
So safe to say, CISOs should be taking this banner and moving it forward in their organizations and outside for that matter. I can
learn AI daily.
Learn AI daily. I love it. I have not put it heard so succinctly. I think that's why I really wanted to capture that. And I appreciate the T-shirt, by the way. If you have a link, if people can order that,
we can probably order that.
Yeah, let me know.
We're testing the concept
test it. If we have that link, we will put it in the show notes for sure. Okay, so shift a little bit. I want to talk about your role as lead research, right? Can you kind of, at SANS, can you encapsulate that for me? Because I hear that and I know what I think,
right?
But I would love to hear, I want your definition. Give me, and give me what it all entails.
The concept around this role is that SANS, even though we do a lot of cybersecurity training, obviously the certifications, but that's a primary business. We have an entire structure around that is sell training, sell certifications. But one of the things that SANS has always looked at is, we are the most trusted source of information security training, certifications, and this last bullet, research. It's this last bullet, this research and mission thing that when Alan Poller, the late Alan Poller now, was driving, he looked at it, a lot from his own platform. And over the past 3 years, SANS has kind of drifted away from this concept of how are we potentially, really driving the community forward? What are we doing? How are we getting involved? So I've taken up this mantle, not Alan, but in terms of how is SANS going to re-engage the community? How are we going to be able to do this outreach? So taking that on, even when you say the chief of research, there are, 3 components to everything that I'm working on. First one is content, so we're looking at driving new content that's out there and into the community. The next one is advocacy. And so we look to trying to figure out, which relationships, which partnerships that we need to build. And finally, it's community. It's how are we overall forming the community around these different topics that we're trying to accomplish. So that's overall, but how do we actually do that? So we take a topic like AI and AI cybersecurity. Everyone assumes that everyone has the book written on this. The answer is no. No one knows.
And I think that's important to really highlight, right? And you said it earlier, but I think I want the audience again, because I agree, because I think you hear people talk and you're like, oh, he's got it figured, she's got it figured out, or she, at least down the further than I am on the path. But in the end, we're all really kind of relatively in the same spot.
Oh yeah.
Right.
So I did a presentation about a year ago. It's the first time I did this, but I've done it since multiple times because I just couldn't believe how much it resonated. And I'm talking about when I was initially doing cybersecurity, which I assumed everyone else knew what they're doing. Everyone else was this massive hacker that would read Frack magazine and be able to I am able to own the planet. From the movie Hackers in the mid-90s. And what I found, though, is no one knew what they were doing. And everyone was just kind of faking it. So I go through the slide deck, and I was talking about AI and how important it is. And I have this quote by April Ludgate from Parks and Rec. It basically said, I'm going to tell you a secret, is that no one knows what they're doing. They're all faking it. And the reason why it's going to be okay is you're awesome, and everyone else is awesome, too. And that's cool. So the next slide comes in, and I directly asked the question. I said, first, close your eyes. And I want you to be honest here. I want you to think about your current knowledge of AI. How many of you are currently faking it with your knowledge of AI to those around you? 90% of the audience raised their hands.
And the other 10% just didn't feel comfortable raising their hand.
And the other 10%, if I could ask them a question, how many of you in the audience aren't going to raise your hand regardless of the question I asked? You'll have a 10% raise. And I think that's an important point, is really making it comfortable to show I'm not completely an expert in all things. The sad thing is, and this happens with CISOs all the time,
That's not our culture.
You are turned to, you are the super nerd. You're like the perplexity.ai of the organization.
Right.
And if you're not able to answer a question, then they're going to question your capabilities. Credibility.
Yes.
And this ties into, you need to be able to say the 3 words, I don't know. And it's not like, I don't know, I'll go research it. Is honestly, this might be an I don't know, and neither does anyone else.
Right.
And we may be the ones to have to do research to figure this out. So SANS, part of what my role is in trying to drive AI through the community, is helping spawn that research, form partnerships with groups that don't know the answer to figure out, well, collectively, maybe we can figure this out. Now, in my history, not to ramble on a little bit, but
we have time. We're good.
Part of the reason why I'm a big advocate for this is when I was initially doing digital forensics, like I came into this field saying, everyone knows what this is and they have everything figured out. Digital forensics at the time was about recovering deleted files from floppy disks.
Yep.
That was pretty much it. And I was trying to do forensics on national of intrusion cases. Like, how did they get on the system? We had network monitoring down. We could watch what they're doing on the network, but I said, we have to be able to see what's going on the host. So I started figuring stuff out, and I'm like, oh, here's the new technique. I assumed everyone else had these techniques. I was like, this is something I think everyone's doing. So I had write course material around it. And this was what, begat the timeline. It's what began, we have this categorization that I started to create, like anything that's attributed to evidence of execution, anything that's attributed to evidence of file opening, and it became less about recovering deleted files and became much more on looking at trace evidence that is able to prove a series of level of activity going on in the system. What I didn't realize at that point is all these new techniques no one had ever figured out before. I shoved in my training course. They assumed everyone else knew about them. And as a result of this, everyone started learning these techniques. And one of the individuals that sat in my class, Jad Liba, who later became the CEO of Magnet Forensics, and I remember collaborating with him, and he started writing tools around a lot of the things I was talking about. And I kind of look at that as like, he started writing the tools, and I'm like, I was feeding all this information, and that tool became Magnet Forensics. And I actually feel like I should have gotten some stock options from that,
right, exactly.
But I'm actually, because of what I was doing for the community and be able to help those in the military and FBI and everyone else, and I don't credit myself only, you're the only one figuring this out, but once we got that ball rolling and saying no one knows what they're doing here, that's what begat the overall digital forensics and its response in the combination there, because digital forensics was typically a law enforcement thing, where when he added instant response into it, we're trying to say this is an overall cybersecurity thing that's associated with it. The two are irrevocably tied together. Like, you didn't need to do digital forensics in every system unless they're compromised.
Right.
And then you go through the compromise, and you're able to see what part of the kill chain that the system was a part of, lateral movement, was it where the privilege escalation occurred? This is where they're searching for data to exfiltrate. All these things that you would potentially look for on the systems are tied back to these different artifacts that are triggered. So, and that's one of the things I really appreciate about SANS. And so a lot of the things I tell about our other SANS instructors, I said, a lot of these techniques that we're asking you to develop with AI workflows, how to use it, no one knows what they're doing here. Go write it. Figure it out, and then go teach it. You're actually teaching the technique now.
You're enabling. You're making it okay, yes. Right? Because I agree with you. Our culture is the know-it-all to some degree, right? But we take pride in it.
Not to some degree.
It is the degree.
It's like you need to be the Doc Brown of the organization,
right?
And
yes, and we take pride in that too. Yeah. So I think there's a personal element to it also, right? Yeah. Where I may feel like less of a ... because I don't have that answer, right? It maybe hurt my ego a little bit if I can't answer that within. But what you're saying is we want to make it okay, right? We have these patterns from the past. We're talking about DFIR and incident response, and so now you say, okay, totally applicable to AI. We have to make it okay to say nobody knows anything yet, but let's work on it together to be able to find out where that path leads us.
And 100%, I actually go back to the military analogy here, and I think a lot of people in the military recognize this, is that the analogy is, you're Marine Corps, you guys have obviously a lot of roles, a lot of weapon systems, and you obviously should know a lot about, how to, take out someone.
Yes.
So choose your weapon, and you're only qualified in certain weapons at this point.
Yep.
But again, they think you're qualified. Everyone, down to the Osprey.
Right.
It's like, hey, you should be able to go fly that thing. You also should be able to use a sniper. You should be able to use artillery. You're also able to, scuba, with all those things. And that's what happens. The level of knowledge needed to be a cybersecurity practitioner today. I have done some very light sketches on this in terms of each one of these knowledge levels. And I've gone and compared it against PhD degrees.
Right.
And if you are actually a fairly proficient practitioner, that you've learned multiple different, hey, I understand cloud, I understand, mobile devices, even with those two, just saying, I've kept up to speed on it, you probably have at least 3 or 4 PhDs in your background at this point. And when you end up thinking about it like that, of course, where's my PhD? Why don't I have a PhD behind my name? It's because it has not been developed to that point. Right. But again, we're getting there in some of these areas, but the level of knowledge that you must have exceeds in many cases the PhDs that doctors need to know just to be able to perform. If you're a foot doctor, whether you're a general specialist or not, whether you're a cancer doctor, that level of knowledge is fairly compact. And, you can ask Perplexity is like, how much knowledge will you need to be able to do this? And then compare that against ever-growing knowledge that means to be a cybersecurity cloud analyst. It's microscopic compared to what a cloud analyst must be able to achieve. And this is one of the reasons why the pushback needs to occur, which is first of all, say, I don't know. No one might know this. And we'll have to figure that out. And it's like, well, if you don't know the answer, why are we going to install this thing on our network? I said, well, we'll have to wait 15 years until we know exactly how to respond to that thing. I said, initially, you'd weigh the risk of installing the thing and us working with it, or, become anti-competitive and understand there's a greater risk in installing this thing in our network. Nothing's going to ever be perfect.
So with what you're saying, my mind goes to, I feel like, so I started this show because I felt like we've kind of lost our way when it comes to the public debate around having critical conversations and being able to debate and still walk away and have a beer like you were talking about, right?
Which we should do.
Which we should do.
Yeah.
And so is there a place now, or are we seeing the tide turn again? Right? Because again, they go away from the know-it-all, go away from the, I'm going to hold data, I'm going to hold information, I'm going to, right? And now just have the kind of that robust public debate. Because that's, I think back to, the early days of the hackers and things like that. That's all they would do, is they would go and debate and how to do the best thing and all that. And then we kind of got away from it, where you had the know-it-alls and the people staying in their own lanes and not really sharing information as much. Are we coming back? Are we getting there, or are we think not yet?
I'm going to walk down the depressive path. I think in order to answer that question, you need to ask a lot of the CISOs who say never, I'll do this job again. And try to uncover what the root cause analysis is for that position. Now, a lot of people says, I want to be the CISO. I'm like, okay, go be a CISO. And then you'll say, well, I'm never doing that again. Why? And I think that needs to be stepped through in order to make some of these changes. I think because it's such an opaque role, that trying to establish boundaries around it, which is, again, everyone talks about, creating boundaries in relationships, creating boundaries in your personal life. The same thing has to occur with some of these roles, because there is no boundary in this role. There is anything that's technical is thrown at you, go solve this problem, go secure it. And, you salute and you're just like, I don't know what I'm being asked to do. I think that perception, and as much as the cybersecurity, umbrella has risen inside these organizations, the level of responsibility, but not authority, has grown. And I think that is fairly critical. And in order to solve that, I do believe, like what I mentioned earlier, is that first need top-down leadership. And I think that first starts with having every single board have a cybersecurity specialist in helping direct that board, because you'll get easier funding. You'll say what the risks are, and you'll be able to have someone advocate for those. And without that, there's a massive gap in discussions around how important security is in order to reduce risk. Second thing I'll mention is that security dollars are not the fund dollars of the organization. Meaning that for every dollar you invest in security, no one loves it. You're not buying iPhones, you're not buying tablets, you're not buying microphones or any of the cool stuff. You're not buying coffee. There's no beer parties.
Right.
Buying security. It is all, every dollar that's invested in there is a dollar that is restricting someone's ability to go do something. And that's why I call it the not fun dollars. And how do you potentially attribute not fun dollars to your ROI? And that is one of the most difficult things I think CISOs are saddled with. I think the board having that kind of expertise on there would be able to say, okay, we need to do better risk assessment for, let's do a McKinsey study, Gartner exam, as to what specifically our industry is if we don't invest enough inside people, products, capabilities, right, policies, in order to potentially have enough of a defense, not in, because that's, you could spend another $2 million on security and only get a 0.5% improvement.
Yes.
So what is the level of investment you need to achieve to hit that 95% and say, okay, from here forward, if we invest the same amount for every single extra percentage, it's going to be the same amount you invested to get to that 95%. And I think getting to that area, I think is crucial. The other thing that I also mentioned with CISOs is there's this downward pressure to replace people with product.
Right.
And I go back to, even with AI, it's the same debate. The more skilled individual that you have driving AI, the more skilled individual that you have driving security, they're going to be able to create solutions. They're going to be able to lead teams. They're going to be able to be the one that is in the middle of the incident that is actually going to figure out a way to save the day. That individual needs to have a path toward giving that medal to saying, hey, listen, we're giving you the silver star in our organization for preventing the really bad stuff from happening by detecting the bad stuff. And right now, that general security attitude doesn't exist.
Right.
And I think that needs to change. So board, people, and making sure people are rewarded for carrying out their jobs correctly.
I want to double click on that last one for sure. Not to diminish the other two, because I think those are very important, but that's a unique concept that I have not heard, because we have, it is you go unrewarded for the for making sure that you stay secure.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Right. And so what's the opportunity look like there? If you were to, again, back to the nuggets out of this thing, if you're going to talk to a CISO, grab him by the shoulder or her by the shoulder and say, hey, if you're going to do these things in your organization to help enable that, what would those be?
It changes the security culture, and it needs to be documented that if we're able to stop and if we're able to do detection, if we're able to interdict before the entire kill chain is completed, then that should result in, hey, we've done our jobs correctly. We have stopped the intrusion. We have I go back into, North Korea, they're sending bombers across the border. You have planes interdict. They shoot down all the inbounds. They didn't fully cross the border. Those who did, maybe one of the planes crashed, took out some civilian infrastructure. But at the same time, did those bombers reach their official targets? The answer is no. So you effectively stopped the operation. If you are able to detail that in an organization, then those are the type of incidents that you potentially say, we should reward the people with that. We should, acknowledge their, I say heroism, or, they probably are spending 20 hours, a day, time away from their families to do this kind of stuff. What about initial detection? Again, it's this thing is like, they detect something in the pucker factor just for the security personnel. Do I tell someone about this?
Yeah.
I'm going to get yelled at because there's a hole somewhere we didn't, know about. There's always going to be a hole. The question is, are we able to detect those intrusions, those initial footprints, it's that type of thing where something bad officially happened, but as long as you're preventing the full bad thing, which is, exfiltration, the Death Star plans, or implanting, something in the OT system that triggers, switch bad things will really happen, or even finding that. Let's assume we've done a scouring, hunting the network using intelligence, and boom, I think we found a bomb. Like, how do we dismantle this thing? How do we get it out of here? Again, the fact we detected it. I mean, these are different types of things that we need to empower the organization, saying, we're giving you a promotion. We are, acknowledging this. We are, doing the parade for the individual. And all of these things are, however you do that in an organization, employee of the month, there's
recognition.
Yeah, detection of the month. There's a lot of different ways to get creative. And I first challenged the military on this. It's like, what badges are you awarding people for doing detection and threat hunting correctly? If we get that done there, then it's going to cross over. It's because those are the leaders that are coming in the organizations later and saying, hey, we used to be awarded a bronze star for this. And then that's combat. But, there's an equivalent for cyber, whatever that bronze star would be. And that needs to be a recognition. But even the military, they've had to sit back and think about this and saying, oh, we don't have those. It's like, you need to get them.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the cyber command and, all the different joint units that are out there have started thinking about this a little bit more, but there's no solution yet. Obviously, it takes years to get there.
Of course.
But if they're able to do that, I think that will cross over into the industry.
And I like that concept. I think because one of the biggest complaints that you hear, and maybe this is one on the list of the CISO of why I never want to do it again, concept is there's no praise, right? Typically. You're not getting praise for stopping the attack. Yeah, I can honestly think in all the interactions that I've had, in all the interviews that I've done, in all the just backline conversations I've had with other CISOs, nobody's ever said they've gotten a pat on the back for stopping the attack.
And why did you let it happen in the first place? What happened to our defenses? Did you miss something?
But we won't go into that part.
I mean, but
I was getting ready to respond.
but that's where it comes down to.
It does.
It's like,
Yes, absolutely.
I answer these questions. I could see where I'm being set up. Who's going to be the fall guy for the intrusion?
So then my brain goes into cyber resilience, right? And so setting the tone with your stakeholders and your leadership, saying this is about how we respond and how we keep our operations running in the face of getting constantly attacked, right? Versus just allowing attack to happen, right? How do we change that mentality?
I go back to the analogy. It's like, no matter how good you are at washing your hands and staying, masked and covered up,
as I scratch my nose.
You're always going to catch a cold. And then would you pass that cold on to someone else? Yeah, there's a chance.
Likely.
So can we potentially go without 100% cold free in our organization for, a year or two? It's unlikely, no matter how good you are. But you're instituting these policies, everyone wash their hands. It's kind of like a restaurant, so a little bit more paranoid. And you see in different countries, everyone wears masks, the health code stuff. But even with that, buying the wrong product at the wrong time, not even the restaurant's fault, would end up, salmonella outbreak, So this is the kind of thing. It's like you make the analogies for other like industries, and then you realize it's a ridiculous thing to ask that we're going to have a zero tolerance, tolerance for any potential incident. And even if there is an incident, that's also one of the reasons why, hey, we should be able to prevent all fires from occurring. But hey, we still have insurance for when a fire does break out. So all these things kind of combine, but it's like we need to change the security culture, not just hey, make sure people are reading their emails, but the security culture in general, or what are the average individuals on the security team, led by the CISO, being asked to do. And then we have to recognize that when they have done something successful, stopping the fire from really blowing out the entire organization, then there needs to be a way to acknowledge that and saying you did a great job.
I like to wrap up a couple different things we wrap up with, but one is kind of the last subject matter, which is recently it would be talk about the future, and the future is AI, but the future is here. So if we look a little bit further on the horizon, what does the future hold? What does it look like, whether it be for SANS, yourself, cybersecurity in general? Just kind of give me that view, like where are we headed philosophically?
Now you're getting into what my keynote is tomorrow. So to a certain extent, even AI capabilities today, the thing that we're already seeing adversaries starting to latch onto is the ever improving speed and velocity that they're able to achieve inside a network. Say a cyber kill chain today from initial intrusion, privilege escalation, lateral movement, find the data in your network exfiltration. That could take 3 or 4 weeks. With AI reasoning, and now call it agency, that has, not agentic, I really don't like that term, but adversary AI agency with tools built inside it, the likelihood of them, once a spearfish is hit, it be able to plow through your networks will happen in seconds. The defenders need to be able to maintain eye contact with the adversaries who are moving at this speed. The only way to do that is starting to utilize AI embedded in these data sets to have automatic detection, automatic, a lot of this stuff saying we need as much data shoved into our own LLMs, more network data. We're able to potentially scan every network packet that's going on the network. We're able to, see into every single piece of data on the host, shove that into an LLM in real time as the changes occur. And then we'll be able to have a chance to match the velocity of the adversaries. Because of regulation, what ends up happening here is that we're fighting with one arm tied behind our back.
Yes.
And the adversaries do not have that limitation. And we're going to potentially have this asymmetry that's going to start to occur in this imbalance. And that's my biggest fear over the next year or two, is that the adversaries are really going to have a greater capability because we're going to be stunting our AI growth because of over-regulated concerns about privacy and safety for AI. Well, of course, the adversaries don't care any about that. And they're going to be able to create capabilities. I'm going to scare a little bit of your viewers here, but when you're taking a look at just ransomware attacks, there is a significant amount of effort that goes into crafting emails to get it inside the network and then trying to figure out where inside the network that we're going to get the tipping point for the ransomware to freeze the network. If you add the agency on to the creation of those emails, meaning that they'll be able to take a little bit of data from your network, see who's talking to who, create realistic emails with replies in place, have that done on logarithmic scale across thousands of organizations, you're now dealing with, we're going to look back at today and saying, wow, remember the days we only had like 1 or 2 a month? It's going to be 200, 300 a month. And my concern is that we may be headed toward the normalization of breaches as the cost of doing business because it's going to be happening too much because of the speed. So there's this aspect that we need to lean forward with AI experts that are involved in the policy discussions that say we need to be enabled on the defensive side to be able to match the velocity of the attackers. And there's only one way to do that is we need access to this data that you're saying is restricted. So that's what my keynote is basically about tomorrow, is really starting to advocate for a cybersecurity safe harbor that, very similar to HIPAA, that with HIPAA in place, doctors have been able to save lives. When you have a cybersecurity exception in place, we're going to be able to save infrastructure. It needs to be on par with that, but no one's developing that at this point.
What's the path to develop it then? If
advocacy, we need
to whom?
There's three things that we need to do. Number one, we need more AI education inside the cybersecurity space, so where people have cybersecurity stink. Number two, we need cybersecurity AI policy translators, meaning that they're at the table, that they're able to look at the policy, also understand cybersecurity, and be able to make recommendations on the way the policy should be formed, to be able to create these safe harbors for cybersecurity data. And number three, you have to have advocacy pushing the legislators to not pass a single piece of legislation without a cybersecurity safe harbor in place.
Okay. I agree, number one, as a CISO, so I'll put my CISO hat on and then my interviewer hat on, because that's something I said the same thing, and I was just on a panel myself, and part of what we were talking about was how do you keep up with the pace? And I said we are seeing that asymmetry. It's already becoming a thing right now. How do we manage that? And I said I'm looking to the vendors in the innovation to move it forward for me, right, and help. But if we're limited, if we're kneecapped because of without a safe harbor, yeah, we're in trouble. We're just going to be, it'll be a situation where we are the scapegoat more and more and more, and then nobody's going to want to do the job, quite honestly.
More than now. More than now.
More than now.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So I don't want to be a CISO. I'll just be honest. I'd rather be on the research side and scare the hell out of people.
Well, I think there's a reality. I mean, nobody wants FUD, but at the same time, there's a reality to it, right? I mean, this is nothing that you said today is inaccurate or sensationalized from my perspective.
Yeah. Try not to be.
All right. So here's the fun part. This is where we're going to have a little bit of fun. So not security whatsoever.
Favorite color is pink.
See, somebody give you did you give him? Okay. So it's not that, but kind of like that. And so we love the human side of this, right? And so all my regular interviews that I do, so not, even though we're at a conference and all that, anytime I get a really good person in the seat, we want to have that human side. So I call it 10 questions with Rob Teedley, right? And I call it a Rorschach test, but with words, okay? But there's no pass or fail. And it's really short answer, right? Okay. And you can give context if you want. You don't have to. You can just let it fly. You can just let it hang if you hang in the air or whatever.
Drop tens.
What's your favorite word?
Amalgamation.
What is your least favorite word?
No.
What area of your work do you find most interesting?
Meeting people.
What area of your work is the most challenging for you?
People who say no.
What sound or noise do you love?
Wait, what?
What sound or noise do you love?
Oh, anything with the Disney theme song. Yeah.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Ooh. Jet taking off.
From the Air Force guy?
I'm traveling a lot right now.
Oh, okay. I went further back than you are. Okay, so in this one, a little provocative. Your call on how you can let it go. You can let it fly. You can say it rhymes with duck.
You should have just
said it.
You should just
What's your favorite curse word?
Oh, crap.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Ooh, special effects engineer, in doing stuff in the movies.
That's the first one of those we've had.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I love it.
It's awesome. What profession would you not like to do? And this is personal preference. This is no indictment, right?
Anything to do with taking care of large swaths of kids for about 8 hours a day. Yeah, could be like, swimming pool.
Understood.
Yeah. There's so many different locations. I'm not like giving it,
He's not
like
gonna be
being
a
a
lifeguard.
teacher or something like that. But there's a lot of folks out there that, like have to deal with kids.
More power to them, right?
You're doing great.
All right, final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear your God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
How the hell did you get here?
Rob T. Lee, thank you so much for coming on today. I truly appreciate it. I think obviously we're all gonna be smarter because of the information you share. I encourage you.
I'm not sure why, but
no, absolutely not. No, you don't get to do what you do without having some bona fides, right? We said.
Well, I think it's the haircut.
Absolutely. Well, we'll talk hair care offline.
Yeah.
But truly appreciate your time today, and hopefully you have a great and good luck on your presentation.
We're professionalizing the CISO role, so please subscribe to the Professional CISO Podcast.